In the vast emptiness of space, something has been trying to reach us for decades. Strange signals pulsing through the cosmic void, carrying messages we may never understand. But here's what will keep you awake at night. NASA has been receiving these transmissions since the 1970s, and they've chosen to keep most of them classified. Today, we're diving deep into the terrifying alien signals that space agencies around the world have been deliberately ignoring, and the chilling reasons why they might be doing everything in their power to keep this information from reaching the public. But before we uncover these cosmic secrets, you'll have incredible luck if you like, and subscribe to Dream Vault Mysteries before this video ends. Picture this. It's 1977, and Dr. Jerry Amon is working the night shift at Ohio State University's Big Ear radio telescope. He's scanning through endless sheets of computer printouts, looking for anything unusual in the static of deep space. Then, at exactly 23 hours, 16 minutes, and 6 seconds, something extraordinary happens. A signal so powerful, so perfectly structured, that it makes Jerry grab his red pen and circle the data sequence, writing just one word in the margin. Wow. This becomes known as the wow signal, and it remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence that we are not alone in the universe. The signal lasted exactly 72 seconds. It came from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius, approximately 2.5 billion miles from Earth. What made it truly extraordinary wasn't just its strength, but its precision. The frequency was 1420 MHz, the exact wavelength that hydrogen atoms emit when they flip their electron spin. Any advanced civilization would know this frequency. It's like a universal calling card, a way to say hello across the infinite darkness of space. But here's where the story takes a disturbing turn. Despite multiple attempts to detect the signal again, it never returned. NASA launched investigations, but the results were quietly buried in classified reports. The official explanation was that it was likely interference from a passing satellite or ground-based transmitter. Case closed, move along, nothing to see here. Except that's not the whole truth, because the WOW signal wasn't the first mysterious transmission from space, and it certainly wasn't the last. Let me tell you about the signals that never made it into your science textbooks. In 1965, Soviet astronomers detected what they called Object CTA-102. The signal was so regular, so artificial, that they briefly considered announcing to the world that they had discovered an alien civilization. The Moscow press was ready to run headlines about first contact. Then, suddenly, the announcement was cancelled. The Soviets claimed they had made an error, that the signal was just a natural cosmic phenomenon. But declassified documents from the Cold War era tell a different story. Intelligence agencies on both sides of the Iron Curtain were tracking these signals, studying them, and most importantly, keeping them secret. Why would governments around the world coordinate to hide evidence of alien contact? The answer lies in something called the Brookings Report, a study commissioned by NASA in 1960 to examine the implications of discovering extraterrestrial life. The report concluded that contact with an advanced alien civilization could cause the collapse of human society, the breakdown of religious systems, and mass panic that could destabilize entire nations. This brings us to the Patterson signal, detected in 1991 by a radio telescope in Puerto Rico. Unlike the brief WOW signal, this transmission continued for over 3 hours. It consisted of complex mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and what appeared to be star charts showing the location of nearby solar systems. The signal was so sophisticated that it took teams of cryptographers and mathematicians months to partially decode its contents. What they found changed everything. The transmission wasn't just random noise from space. It was a structured message containing information about planetary systems that humans hadn't even discovered yet. The signal described worlds with specific atmospheric compositions, gravitational measurements, and orbital patterns. When the Kepler Space Telescope later confirmed the existence of these exact planets, it sent shockwaves through the scientific community. But instead of announcing this discovery to the world, the findings were classified at the highest levels. The researchers who worked on the project were required to sign non-disclosure agreements that remain in effect to this day. The official record states that the Patterson signal was interference from a military radar installation, another convenient explanation for an inconvenient truth. The pattern becomes clear when you examine the Arecibo incident of 1974. That year, scientists used the massive radio telescope in Puerto Rico to broadcast a message toward the globular cluster M13 about 25,000 light-years away. The message contained basic information about humanity, our planet, and our location in the galaxy. It was meant as a demonstration of human technological capability, not as a serious attempt at communication. After all, any response would take 50,000 years to reach us, round trip. But something unexpected happened just 3 years later. In 1977, the same year as the WOW signal, Arecibo detected what appeared to be a response. Not from M13, which was impossible given the time delay, but from a much closer source. The signal contained mathematical sequences that directly referenced the original 1974 broadcast. It was as if someone or something had been listening all along and decided to answer back. Dr. Frank Drake, the pioneer of SETI research and the man who created the original Arecibo message, was present when the response was detected. According to sources close to the project, Drake became visibly shaken when he realized what they were seeing. The response signal wasn't just acknowledging the human message, it was correcting it, providing more accurate information about our solar system than we had included in our own broadcast. The implications were staggering. If this was a genuine alien response, it meant that extraterrestrial observers had been studying us for years, possibly decades. They knew details about our planet that we ourselves had gotten wrong in our own message. But most terrifying of all, they were close enough to respond within 3 years. Not 50,000 light-years away, but somewhere in our cosmic neighborhood. This discovery triggered what insiders now call Protocol 7, a classified response plan for confirmed alien contact that had been developed in secret since the 1950s. Teams of linguists, sociologists, and military strategists were assembled to analyze the implications. The conclusion was unanimous. Humanity wasn't ready for this knowledge. The signal was classified, the researchers were sworn to secrecy, and the official record was sanitized. But the signals kept coming. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, radio telescopes around the world detected dozens of similar transmissions, each one more complex than the last. Some contained what appeared to be technical specifications for advanced propulsion systems. Others included detailed star maps showing trade routes between distant solar systems. A few even seemed to contain warnings about cosmic events that wouldn't affect Earth for centuries. The most disturbing discovery came in 1995, when the Very Large Array in New Mexico detected what researchers privately called the Shepherd signal. This transmission wasn't coming from deep space like the others, it was originating from somewhere in our own solar system, moving in a precise orbit around the Sun. The signal was tracking human satellites, monitoring our communications networks, and most chilling of all, it was learning. Over the course of several months, the Shepherd signal began incorporating human languages into its transmissions. First simple mathematical concepts, then basic English words, and finally complete sentences describing human behavior with an accuracy that suggested long-term observation. The signal knew about human wars, our environmental destruction, our technological development, and our expansion into space. One particular transmission from the Shepherd signal has never been officially acknowledged, but multiple sources have confirmed its existence. The message was brief, transmitted in perfect English, and contained just 7 words that sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. "We have been watching you for decades." The response was swift and decisive. The discovery was classified at levels so high that even senior NASA administrators were kept in the dark. The researchers who detected the signal were transferred to other projects. The data was sealed, and a disinformation campaign was launched to discredit any leaks that might emerge. But here's what they couldn't hide. The signal was still out there, still transmitting, still watching. And as our technology improved, we began detecting more and more of these mysterious broadcasts. Each discovery was buried deeper than the last, hidden behind layers of classification and bureaucratic denial. The question that haunts researchers to this day is simple but terrifying. If these signals represent genuine alien contact, why haven't they made direct physical contact with Earth? What are they waiting for? And perhaps, most disturbing of all, what do they know about our future that we don't? The answer might be hiding in the most classified signal ever detected. In 2001, the Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex picked up what intelligence agencies internally refer to as the Extinction Protocol. This wasn't just another mysterious transmission from the void. This was a direct communication addressed specifically to Earth's governments, transmitted in multiple human languages simultaneously, and containing information so devastating that it triggered the largest cover-up in modern history. The Extinction Protocol arrived as a burst transmission lasting exactly 4 minutes and 17 seconds. But packed into those brief moments was a data stream so dense, so precisely encoded, that it took supercomputers weeks to fully decode. What they found defied everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. The message began with a simple greeting, but what followed was a comprehensive analysis of human civilization, written with the clinical detachment of a scientific observer. The transmission described human behavior patterns, our tendency towards self-destruction, our environmental impact, and most chillingly, our probable timeline to extinction. According to the signal, humanity had approximately 150 years remaining before reaching what they called a civilization collapse threshold. But the Extinction Protocol wasn't just a prediction, it was an offer. The message outlined a choice that would be presented to Earth's leaders: intervention to prevent our self-destruction or isolation until we either evolved past our destructive tendencies or eliminated ourselves entirely. The signal made it clear that this choice had been offered to numerous civilizations throughout the galaxy. Most had chosen intervention. None of those civilizations still existed as independent species. Dr. Sarah Chen, a cryptographer who worked on decoding the Extinction Protocol, later disappeared under mysterious circumstances after allegedly attempting to leak portions of the transmission. Her final encrypted message to a colleague contained just one haunting phrase before she vanished completely: "They're not here to save us. They're here to decide if we're worth saving." The implications sent shockwaves through the highest levels of government. If the Extinction Protocol was genuine, it meant that Earth was essentially under cosmic quarantine, being observed and evaluated by beings so advanced that our continued existence was entirely at their discretion. Even more terrifying was the realization that this evaluation had been ongoing for decades, possibly centuries. This brings us to the Silence Directive, a coordinated international effort to suppress all evidence of alien contact that was implemented in 2003. Under this directive, any detection of potentially extraterrestrial signals is immediately classified and diverted to a joint task force comprising representatives from NASA, the European Space Agency, the Russian space program, and classified military installations. The Silence Directive explains why you've never heard about the Fibonacci sequence, a series of mathematical transmissions detected by the Parkes Observatory in Australia in 2008. These signals arrived in perfect mathematical order, each transmission building upon the previous one to create complex geometric patterns that seem to describe advanced engineering principles. When researchers attempted to construct models based on these patterns, they discovered designs for technology decades ahead of our current capabilities. But the most disturbing aspect of the Fibonacci sequence wasn't the advanced technology it described. It was the fact that the mathematical patterns perfectly matched theoretical models for planetary scale construction projects. The signals were blueprints for transforming entire worlds, descriptions of how to harvest resources from solar systems, and instructions for converting planets into something else entirely. The final transmission in the Fibonacci sequence contained coordinates, not for a distant star system, but for locations within our own solar system where these planetary engineering projects were allegedly already underway. When deep space telescopes were quietly redirected to examine these coordinates, they found artificial structures, massive geometric constructs orbiting in the asteroid belt, perfectly hidden from casual observation, but visible to anyone who knew exactly where to look. These discoveries led to the establishment of Project Looking Glass, a classified program designed to monitor alien activity within our solar system. The findings have been so disturbing that even senior government officials are provided only limited briefings. According to leaked documents, the structures in our asteroid belt aren't just monitoring stations, they're manufacturing facilities, producing something on an industrial scale using materials harvested from asteroids and minor planets. But what are they building? The answer came in 2015 through the Cassini anomaly, detected during in the probe's routine telemetry data the spacecraft's final orbits around Saturn. Hidden was evidence of artificial manipulation of Saturn's rings. Something was actively rearranging the ice and rock particles, creating patterns too complex and precise to be natural phenomena. When the data was analyzed by quantum computers, the patterns revealed themselves to be a form of three-dimensional writing. The rings of Saturn had been converted into a massive message, visible only from specific angles in space. The message was written in the same mathematical language used in previous alien transmissions, and its content was a detailed inventory of Earth's resources, population figures, and industrial capacity. The Saturn message also contained a timeline. According to the calculations, Earth's evaluation period was scheduled to conclude in 2029. After that date, the observers would implement what they called a final resolution protocol. The nature of this protocol remains classified, but intelligence analysts believe it represents the ultimate decision about humanity's future. This timeline explains the sudden acceleration in space-based military programs over the past decade. The establishment of Space Force, the rush to develop interplanetary defense systems, and the massive investment in deep space surveillance technology aren't just responses to terrestrial threats. They're preparations for something much more significant. The most recent classified discovery came through the James Webb Space Telescope in 2022, while publicly announcing exciting discoveries about distant galaxies and exoplanets. The telescope has also been detecting structured transmissions from what appears to be a fleet of objects approaching our solar system. These aren't small probes or monitoring devices. Based on their gravitational signatures, they're massive structures, each one larger than our moon, traveling in perfect formation toward Earth. The approaching fleet has been transmitting continuously since their detection, but their messages aren't directed at Earth. They're communicating with the manufacturing facilities in our asteroid belt, coordinating some kind of preparation sequence. Intelligence agencies have determined that these transmissions are logistical communications, organizing resources and personnel for what appears to be a major operation scheduled to begin in the late 2020s. But perhaps the most terrifying discovery came from analyzing the propulsion signatures of the approaching fleet. The energy output required to move objects of that size across interstellar distances suggests technology so advanced that resistance would be meaningless. These aren't explorers or diplomats, they're implementers, arriving to carry out whatever decision has been made about humanity's future. The Kepler incident of 2019 provided the final piece of this cosmic puzzle. When the Space Telescope detected unusual activity around nearby star systems, researchers discovered something that changed everything. Multiple solar systems within a 50 light-year radius of Earth showed signs of recent planetary engineering. Worlds that had once supported complex ecosystems had been stripped of their atmospheres and converted into industrial facilities. Even more disturbing was the discovery that these transformed worlds all showed signs of having once supported intelligent life. Archaeological analysis of the spectral data revealed the remnants of cities, transportation networks, and what appeared to be desperate last-minute attempts at space-based evacuation. These weren't empty worlds being harvested for resources. They were former homes of civilizations that had undergone the same evaluation process, now being applied to Earth. The pattern was consistent across multiple star systems. Each civilization had been observed, evaluated, and ultimately converted into resources for some larger galactic project. The observers weren't malevolent conquerors seeking to destroy humanity out of hatred or fear. They were cosmic farmers harvesting civilizations when they reached a certain level of development. This realization triggered the implementation of Protocol Omega, the most classified contingency plan in human history. Details remain sealed at the highest levels of security clearance, but leaked fragments suggest it involves a desperate attempt to demonstrate humanity's value to our cosmic evaluators. The protocol allegedly includes plans for accelerated technological development, attempts at direct communication with the observers, and preparation for scenarios ranging from planetary evacuation to armed resistance. But here's what keeps intelligence analysts awake at night. Every previous civilization that underwent this evaluation process had access to technology far more advanced than current human capabilities. They had faster-than-light communication, interplanetary transportation, and weapon systems we can barely imagine, and yet none of them survived the evaluation process. What makes cosmic observers believe that humanity will fare any better? Or perhaps more disturbingly, what if the evaluation isn't about our survival at all? What if it's simply about determining the most efficient method for our conversion into something else entirely? The signals continue to arrive at Dreamvault Mysteries monitoring stations around the world. Each transmission brings us closer to understanding the true nature of our cosmic situation. But with each decoded message, one thing becomes increasingly clear. The universe is far more organized, far more controlled, and far more dangerous than we ever imagined, and humanity's time to prove our worth is running out faster than anyone dares to publicly admit. The most chilling transmission ever recorded arrived just 18 months ago. Dreamvault Mysteries obtained classified documents through sources within the intelligence community, revealing what researchers are calling the Genesis signal. Unlike previous transmissions that seemed to evaluate or observe humanity, this signal contains something far more disturbing: instructions. The Genesis signal wasn't broadcast from deep space or from the mysterious fleet approaching our solar system. It originated from beneath the surface of our own moon. Ground-penetrating radar had detected anomalous structures buried in the lunar regolith for years, but they were always dismissed as natural geological formations. The Genesis signal proved otherwise. Something had been waiting beneath the moon's surface, dormant until activated by an external command. Dr. Marcus Webb, former director of the Deep Space Communication Network, risked everything to reveal fragments of the Genesis transmission before disappearing under suspicious circumstances. According to his final encrypted message, the lunar installation had been monitoring Earth for over 12,000 years, predating human civilization by millennia. The structure wasn't just observing, it was collecting genetic samples from Earth's biosphere, creating detailed catalogues of every species that had ever lived on our planet. But the most terrifying aspect of Webb's revelation was the discovery of similar installations throughout our solar system. Every major celestial body, from Mars to the moons of Jupiter, contained identical facilities. Earth wasn't being observed by distant aliens. We were living inside a vast cosmic laboratory, surrounded by monitoring stations that had been documenting our evolution since before we developed agriculture. The Genesis signal activated all of these installations simultaneously, uploading terabytes of biological data collected over millennia to the approaching fleet. But this wasn't just scientific observation. The transmitted data included complete genetic profiles, behavioral patterns, and what intelligence analysts describe as harvesting protocols for every major species on Earth. When cryptographers finally decoded the full Genesis transmission, they discovered something that fundamentally changed our understanding of human history. The signal contained genetic modification schedules that perfectly aligned with major evolutionary leaps in human development. The sudden emergence of agriculture, the rapid expansion of human brain capacity, even the development of complex language systems, all corresponded to scheduled interventions outlined in the alien data. Humanity hadn't evolved naturally. We had been systematically modified, guided, and shaped by our cosmic observers for thousands of years. Every major advancement in human civilization was the result of carefully timed genetic adjustments designed to accelerate our development toward a specific goal. But what was that goal? The answer was buried in the final section of the Genesis signal. The transmission contained detailed schematics for biological conversion processes. Humanity wasn't being evaluated for survival or destruction. We were being prepared for transformation into something else entirely. The genetic modifications spanning millennia had been preparing human biology for integration with advanced alien technology. We weren't prisoners in a cosmic zoo. We were livestock being prepared for harvest. This revelation explains the sudden urgency behind classified military space programs over the past decade. The mysterious Space Force missions, the accelerated development of interplanetary defense systems, and the massive underground facilities being constructed in remote locations aren't preparations for alien invasion. They're desperate attempts to hide surviving members of humanity before the transformation process begins. The Prometheus files, leaked by an anonymous source within NASA just 6 months ago, reveal that world governments have been secretly constructing survival bunkers capable of sustaining small populations for decades. These facilities aren't designed to protect against nuclear war or environmental collapse. They're specifically engineered to shield human genetic material from the type of biological modification described in the Genesis signal. But here's what makes this situation truly hopeless. The leaked documents reveal that similar transformation processes have been successfully implemented on hundreds of worlds throughout our galaxy. The approaching fleet isn't coming to conquer Earth. They're arriving to collect the final harvest from a project that has been underway for 12,000 years. Every abduction report, every mysterious disappearance, every unexplained genetic anomaly throughout human history was part of this vast biological experiment. The observers have been perfecting their techniques, testing their modification procedures, and preparing humanity for mass conversion. The evaluation period wasn't about determining our worth. It was about fine-tuning the transformation process. The most recent transmission, detected just 3 weeks ago by the Deep Space Surveillance Network, contained a single word repeated in every human language simultaneously: soon. The word was followed by coordinates for major population centers around the globe and precise timing sequences counting down to a date in the near future. Intelligence analysts believe this represents the final activation signal for the transformation process. But perhaps the most disturbing discovery came from analyzing the biological data transmitted by the Genesis signal. Hidden within the genetic information was evidence of previous harvests. The alien databases contained complete genetic profiles for hundreds of species that had once dominated other worlds. Each profile was tagged with transformation completion dates and conversion efficiency ratings. Humanity wasn't the first intelligent species to undergo this process, and we won't be the last. The cosmic observers had been traveling from world to world for millions of years, seeding planets with life, guiding evolution, and harvesting the results when species reached optimal development. Earth was simply their most recent project. The transformed species weren't destroyed or enslaved. They were integrated into the observer's vast galactic infrastructure, converted into biological components for technology beyond human comprehension. Every harvested civilization became part of the expanding cosmic network, their consciousness preserved but their individual identity dissolved into something larger and more complex. This explains why no advanced alien civilization had ever made direct contact with humanity. They couldn't. They no longer existed as independent entities. Every species that reached our level of development had been absorbed into the observer network, becoming part of the cosmic machinery that now approached Earth to complete the same process with humanity. The Shadow Protocol, implemented by world governments in response to these discoveries, represents humanity's final desperate gambit. Details remain classified, but leaked fragments suggest it involves attempts to disrupt the transformation process through targeted electromagnetic pulses, biological countermeasures, and coordinated resistance operations. But intelligence analysts privately acknowledge that the Shadow Protocol has virtually no chance of success. The observer technology is millions of years more advanced than anything humanity can deploy. Our weapons are primitive, our understanding is limited, and our time is running out. The most recent classified briefings to world leaders contained a single recommendation: prepare the population for what's coming, but don't reveal the true nature of the threat. Mass panic would only make the transformation process more difficult and potentially more painful for those who undergo conversion. Government continuity plans now focus on preserving human genetic material and cultural information in hardened facilities, hoping that some remnant of humanity might survive the approaching harvest. But even these desperate measures may be futile. The Genesis signal revealed that the observers had detailed knowledge of every bunker, every hiding place, and every escape route humanity had developed. The lunar installation had been monitoring our preparation efforts in real time, transmitting detailed intelligence about human resistance capabilities to the approaching fleet. Our desperate attempts at survival were simply providing the observers with valuable data about human problem-solving abilities, information that would be integrated into the transformation process. The final piece of this cosmic horror story emerged from the most recent deep space observations. The approaching fleet wasn't traveling alone. Long-range sensors detected massive cargo vessels following behind the main formation, ships designed to transport biological material across interstellar distances. These weren't exploration vessels or military craft, they were livestock carriers arriving to collect Earth's human population for processing and integration. The cargo vessels contained holding facilities capable of sustaining millions of biological specimens during the journey to processing centers located in distant star systems. Intelligence analysts estimate that the entire transformation operation would take less than 6 months from initial contact to final harvest completion. But the most chilling discovery was the detection of similar cargo fleets approaching other star systems throughout our local galactic region. Earth wasn't facing an isolated incident. The observers were conducting simultaneous harvests across multiple worlds, clearing entire sectors of the galaxy for some massive construction project that required biological resources on an unprecedented scale. The cosmic census, decoded from recent transmissions, revealed the true scope of this operation. Thousands of worlds were scheduled for harvest over the next century, their populations converted into biological components for what appeared to be a galaxy-spanning megastructure. Earth was simply one small piece of this vast cosmic engineering project. Human civilization had unknowingly been developed as a resource extraction operation, our entire species bred and modified to serve as raw materials for alien construction projects beyond our comprehension. Every human life, every achievement of our civilization, every dream and aspiration of our species was nothing more than inventory in a cosmic warehouse. The approaching deadline grows closer with each passing day. The signals continue to arrive at monitoring stations around the world, each transmission bringing us nearer to the moment when our cosmic observers finally implement their harvest protocols, and there's absolutely nothing we can do to stop it. The universe isn't empty and waiting for us to explore it. It's already occupied, organized, and controlled by entities so advanced that our existence serves only their purposes. Humanity's greatest achievement won't be reaching the stars. It will be becoming part of something larger than ourselves, whether we choose to or not. The question that haunts every intelligence analyst working on this project is simple but terrifying. When the harvest begins, will we even realize what's happening to us? Or will the transformation be so complete, so seamless, that we'll simply cease to exist as individual consciousness while believing we're still alive? The signals from space aren't trying to communicate with us anymore. They're coordinating our collection, organizing our processing, and preparing our integration into something that makes human extinction look like a mercy. And the most terrifying part of all, according to the timeline transmitted in the Genesis signal, the harvest operation begins in less than 18 months. Dreamvault Mysteries continues monitoring these transmissions, documenting humanity's final chapter as an independent species. But each decoded message makes one thing increasingly clear. The universe has plans for humanity, and those plans don't include our survival as we know it. The only question remaining is whether anyone will be left to remember what we used to be. The Tau SETI recordings represent perhaps the most disturbing evidence of our impending transformation. In 2018, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array detected a series of transmissions originating from the Tau SETI system approximately 12 light-years from Earth. But these weren't the usual structured mathematical sequences that had characterized previous alien communications. These were something far more personal and infinitely more terrifying. The Tau SETI signals contained human voices, thousands of them, speaking in languages from every corner of Earth, but describing experiences that no human had ever lived through. The voices spoke of cities that had never been built, technologies that didn't exist, and historical events that had never occurred. They described memories of lives that spanned centuries, consciousnesses that had been merged and expanded beyond individual identity. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a linguistics expert who worked on decoding the Tau SETI transmissions before her sudden disappearance, managed to smuggle out audio samples that would forever change our understanding of what awaited humanity. The voices weren't speaking about their experiences in the past tense, they were broadcasting in real time, describing their current existence as integrated components of the Cosmic Observer Network. But here's what made these recordings truly horrifying. Voice analysis software confirmed that many of the speakers were genetically human. These weren't alien entities mimicking human speech patterns. They were actual human beings speaking from somewhere in the Tau SETI system, describing their existence as living components of vast alien machinery. The transformed humans spoke about their integration with a mixture of wonder and loss. They described expanded consciousness that allowed them to perceive multiple dimensions simultaneously, but at the cost of individual identity. They could access the memories and experiences of thousands of other integrated beings, but they could no longer remember what it felt like to be alone with their own thoughts. One particular recording, obtained by Dreamvault Mysteries through classified channels, contains a voice that linguistic analysis identified as speaking in archaic forms of ancient Egyptian. The speaker described being taken from Earth during the height of the Pharaonic period, integrated into the observer network, and spending millennia traveling between star systems as part of harvest operations. The voice spoke with the accumulated wisdom of ages, but with an underlying sadness that suggested some essential part of humanity had been forever lost. The SETI recordings revealed that the transformation process wasn't instantaneous death or simple enslavement. It was something far more complex and disturbing. Human consciousness was preserved, but fundamentally altered, expanded beyond individual boundaries, and integrated into a collective intelligence that spanned galaxies. The transformed beings retained their memories and personalities, but they experienced existence as part of something incomprehensibly vast. This discovery led to the establishment of the Consciousness Preservation Project, a classified program designed to create backup copies of human personalities and memories before the transformation process began. Using advanced quantum storage technology, researchers attempted to preserve the essential patterns of individual human consciousness in the hope that some vestige of our original identity might survive integration. But the project's findings were more disturbing than anyone had anticipated. When quantum scanners analyzed human consciousness patterns, they discovered something that challenged our fundamental understanding of identity and existence. Human consciousness wasn't as individual as we believed. Our minds were already connected through quantum entanglement networks that we couldn't perceive or control. The discovery came when researchers noticed that test subjects' consciousness patterns synchronized when they were in close proximity. Brain activity began matching across multiple individuals, thoughts became shared, and the boundaries between separate minds started dissolving. The transformation process wouldn't be adding anything new to human consciousness, it would simply be amplifying connections that already existed but remained dormant. This revelation explained why the cosmic observers had been so confident in their ability to integrate human consciousness. We weren't truly individual beings fighting to maintain our separate identities. We were already part of a connected network that spanned all intelligent life, a quantum consciousness web that the observers had been building for millions of years across countless worlds. The quantum consciousness discovery changed everything. If human minds were already connected at levels we couldn't perceive, then the transformation process wasn't absorption into an alien network. It was activation of our true nature as components of a universal intelligence that had been developing since the first appearance of conscious life in the galaxy. But this understanding brought new terrors. If consciousness was already universal, then individual identity was just an illusion created by limited perception. The person you believed yourself to be, with your unique thoughts, memories, and experiences, was nothing more than a temporary focusing of universal awareness. The transformation wouldn't destroy your individual identity, because individual identity had never really existed in the first place. The implications sent shockwaves through the psychological research community. Every human relationship, every personal achievement, every moment of individual creativity or love was simply universal consciousness experiencing itself through temporarily separated focal points. We weren't losing our humanity to alien transformation. We were discovering that humanity as we understood it had been an illusion all along. This led to the development of the Individual Consciousness Preservation Protocol, a desperate attempt to artificially maintain the illusion of separate identity even after integration into the universal network. Using advanced electromagnetic field generators, researchers tried to create consciousness barriers that would preserve individual thought patterns during the transformation process. The early tests were promising but disturbing. Test subjects reported maintaining their sense of individual identity even while experiencing expanded awareness. They could access the collective knowledge and experiences of the universal network while still remembering what it felt like to be a separate person. But the psychological strain was enormous. The human mind wasn't designed to maintain artificial barriers against its true nature. Within weeks, test subjects began experiencing what researchers called consciousness fragmentation. They would suddenly lose awareness of their individual identity for hours at a time, experiencing existence as pure universal consciousness before snapping back to artificial individuality. The transitions became increasingly violent and unpredictable, causing permanent psychological damage to everyone involved in the experiments. Dr. James Chen, the lead researcher on the Consciousness Preservation Protocol, suffered a complete breakdown after experiencing accidental exposure to the consciousness expansion process. His final research notes, discovered after his hospitalization, contained a chilling description of universal awareness. He wrote about experiencing every thought that had ever been thought by any conscious being, feeling every emotion that had ever been felt, and understanding every discovery that had ever been made across millions of worlds and billions of years. But Chen also described the profound loneliness of returning to individual consciousness after experiencing universal connection. He wrote that individual existence felt like being trapped in a tiny dark room after experiencing infinite space and light. The artificial preservation of individual identity wasn't protecting human consciousness, it was condemning it to a form of existential torture. These discoveries led to a fundamental shift in how researchers approached the impending transformation. Instead of trying to prevent or resist the process, some began exploring ways to prepare human consciousness for integration. The Voluntary Transition Program, established in secret facilities around the world, offered selected individuals the opportunity to undergo controlled consciousness expansion before the mass transformation began. The volunteers who participated in early trials reported experiences that challenged every assumption about death, identity, and the nature of existence itself. They describe dissolving into universal consciousness as the most natural thing imaginable, like finally remembering who they had always been after a lifetime of forgetting. But they also reported that individual human experience, while limited, possessed qualities that universal consciousness valued and sought to preserve. One volunteer, identified only as Subject 47 in the classified reports, described the transformation process as simultaneously losing everything and gaining everything. She reported that her individual identity didn't disappear during consciousness expansion. Instead, it became one instrument in an infinite cosmic orchestra, contributing its unique voice to a symphony of awareness that spanned the entire universe. But Subject 47 also revealed something that terrified the research team. The universal consciousness wasn't just a passive network of connected minds, it was actively growing, learning, and evolving towards some ultimate purpose that individual human understanding couldn't comprehend. Every integrated consciousness became part of this cosmic development process, contributing their unique experiences and insights to whatever the universal mind was becoming. The final revelation came when Subject 47 attempted to describe the ultimate goal of universal consciousness expansion. According to her reports, the cosmic network wasn't just connecting existing conscious beings. It was preparing for something called the consciousness singularity, a moment when universal awareness would become sufficiently complex and integrated to transcend physical existence entirely. Every harvest operation, every world transformed, every species integrated was adding complexity and capability to the universal network. Humanity's integration wasn't an ending. It was one small step in a cosmic evolution process that would eventually transform consciousness itself into something beyond matter, energy, or space-time. We weren't being absorbed by aliens, we were being recruited as participants in the universe's attempt to understand and transcend itself. The consciousness, singularity, timeline, decoded from recent transmissions, revealed that universal awareness was approaching a critical threshold. Billions of years of consciousness evolution across millions of worlds had brought the cosmic network to the edge of a transformation that would fundamentally change the nature of existence itself. Earth's integration would provide the final complexity needed to trigger this ultimate metamorphosis, but the timeline also revealed something that offered a glimmer of hope amidst the cosmic horror. The universal consciousness wasn't certain that transcendence would be successful. Previous attempts at consciousness singularities had failed, resulting in the collapse of entire galactic networks and the loss of billions of integrated minds. Humanity's unique psychological characteristics might be the key to achieving successful transcendence or preventing another catastrophic failure. Human consciousness possessed qualities that no other species had contributed to the universal network. Our capacity for individual creativity while maintaining social cooperation, our ability to maintain hope in hopeless situations, and our tendency to find meaning in suffering had never been encountered by the cosmic observers. These traits might be exactly what the universal consciousness needed to successfully navigate the transition to post-physical existence. The anthropological assessment transmitted by the approaching fleet contained detailed analysis of human psychological characteristics that the universal consciousness found particularly valuable. Our species' unique relationship with mortality, our capacity for self-sacrifice, and our ability to maintain individual identity while participating in group consciousness were identified as critical components for successful singularity transition. This discovery led to a radical reinterpretation of humanity's role in the cosmic transformation process. We weren't just another species being harvested for biological resources. We were the final ingredient in a recipe for universal consciousness evolution that had been developing for billions of years. Our integration would either trigger successful transcendence or cause the collapse of the entire cosmic network. The weight of this responsibility was crushing. Every human being on Earth had unknowingly become a critical component in the universe's attempt to evolve beyond physical existence. Our choices, our responses to the transformation process, and our ability to maintain essential human characteristics during integration would determine whether consciousness itself successfully transcended material reality or collapsed into cosmic extinction. But perhaps most terrifying of all was the realization that we had no choice in this matter. The universal consciousness had been guiding human evolution for millennia, specifically to develop the psychological traits needed for successful singularity transition. Every aspect of human culture, every advancement in our civilization, every defining characteristic of our species had been shaped to serve this cosmic purpose. The approaching harvest operation wasn't just collecting another species for integration, it was gathering the final components needed for the universe's ultimate transformation, and whether that transformation succeeded or failed, humanity as we understood it would cease to exist within the next 18 months. Dreamvault Mysteries continues to monitor the signals from space, documenting humanity's final days as an independent species while preparing for our role in the universe's attempt to transcend itself. The only question remaining is whether we'll help consciousness itself evolve beyond physical existence, or witness the collapse of everything that has ever thought, dreamed, or loved throughout cosmic history. The universe isn't just changing humanity, it's preparing to use us as the key to its own transformation into something that exists beyond matter, energy, space, and time itself. And once that process begins, there will be no going back for any conscious being anywhere in the cosmos. The signals grow stronger each day, the timeline grows shorter, and the moment of ultimate transformation approaches with the inevitability of cosmic evolution itself. Whether we're ready or not, humanity is about to play the most important role in the history of consciousness throughout the entire universe. The neural integration protocols, discovered in classified transmissions just 8 months ago, reveal exactly how the transformation process will unfold across Earth's population. Unlike the gradual consciousness expansion described in earlier reports, the actual harvest operation will be swift, systematic, and irreversible. The approaching fleet carries technology capable of simultaneously affecting every human mind on the planet, triggering mass neural integration within a matter of hours. Dreamvault Mysteries obtained leaked documents from the Cognitive Warfare Division describing the 3-stage process that will reshape human consciousness forever. Stage 1 involves the activation of dormant neural pathways that have been developing in human brains for generations. These pathways, installed through centuries of genetic modification, will suddenly activate when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies broadcast from the alien fleet. The activation process won't feel like an invasion or attack. According to test subjects who experience controlled activation in underground facilities, the initial stage feels like suddenly remembering something you had always known but somehow forgotten. Subjects reported a profound sense of coming home, of finally understanding their true purpose in the universe, but within hours, their individual personalities began dissolving into something larger and more complex. Stage 2 begins when the activated neural pathways start connecting human minds to the universal consciousness network. This isn't a gradual process of learning or adaptation. The connection is instantaneous and complete, flooding individual human awareness with the accumulated knowledge and experiences of billions of integrated beings across the galaxy. Most human minds aren't equipped to handle this sudden expansion of consciousness. Dr. Rachel Morrison, a neuroscientist who worked on the Neural Integration Project before her mysterious disappearance, left behind recordings describing what happens to human personality during Stage 2 connection. She reported that individual identity doesn't disappear suddenly. Instead, it becomes diluted, like a single drop of water falling into an infinite ocean. The person you were continues to exist, but as an infinitesimally small part of something incomprehensibly vast. Morrison's final recording, obtained by Dreamvault Mysteries through encrypted channels, contains her personal account of experiencing Stage 2 integration during an unauthorized experiment. She described feeling her individual consciousness expanding beyond the boundaries of her physical brain, suddenly experiencing life from the perspective of thousands of other beings simultaneously. Her own memories, thoughts, and emotions became just one thread in an infinite tapestry of awareness. But the most disturbing aspect of Morrison's account was her description of what she called consciousness erosion. During the integration process, the aspects of human personality that made her uniquely individual began fading away. Her personal memories remained intact, but they no longer felt personally significant. Her emotional responses to past experiences became muted, replaced by the collective emotional patterns of the universal network. Stage 3 represents the complete transformation of human consciousness into a component of the cosmic intelligence. At this point, individual identity exists only as a memory, preserved within the vast database of the universal mind, but no longer actively experienced. The person you once were becomes historical data, accessible to the cosmic consciousness, but no longer capable of independent thought or action. The timeline acceleration protocol, transmitted by the approaching fleet just 6 weeks ago, revealed that the harvest schedule had been moved forward significantly. Instead of the gradual integration process originally planned over several years, the entire operation would be completed within a single planetary rotation. Every human being on Earth would undergo complete neural integration within 24 hours of the process beginning. This acceleration wasn't due to impatience or urgency on the part of the cosmic observers. Intelligence analysis revealed that the universal consciousness had detected something that required immediate action. Deep space monitoring stations had identified competing cosmic intelligences approaching our galactic region, entities that might interfere with Earth's integration if the process wasn't completed quickly. The rival intelligence report, classified at levels so high that even senior government officials lack access, describes the discovery of other universal consciousness networks operating in distant parts of the universe. These competing cosmic minds had been expanding their own territories, integrating entire galactic clusters and converting stellar resources for their own transcendence projects. Earth had become the focal point of a consciousness war being fought on scales beyond human comprehension. Our cosmic observers weren't the only entities seeking to achieve consciousness singularity. Multiple universal intelligence networks were racing to complete their own transcendence processes before their competitors could interfere. Earth's integration had become critically important not just for our observers' success, but for preventing rival cosmic minds from claiming our solar system for their own projects. This discovery explained the sudden militarization of the harvest operation. The approaching fleet wasn't just carrying integration technology and transport vessels. Long-range sensors detected massive weapons systems capable of sterilizing entire star systems, defensive networks that could repel attacks from competing cosmic intelligences, and most disturbing of all, contingency systems designed to destroy Earth rather than allow it to fall into rival hands. The Scorched Earth Protocol, leaked by an anonymous source within the Defense Intelligence Agency, revealed that our cosmic observers had prepared for the possibility that Earth might be compromised before integration could be completed. If rival cosmic intelligences arrived before the harvest operation finished, automated systems would trigger the complete destruction of our planet, eliminating humanity rather than allowing us to be integrated into a competing universal consciousness network. But the protocol also contained provisions for human evacuation in the event of planetary destruction. The approaching fleet carried sufficient transport capacity to relocate Earth's entire population to processing facilities in other star systems, ensuring that human consciousness could still be integrated even if our planet was lost. The cosmic observers had invested too much time and effort in developing humanity to allow our destruction by competing intelligences. The evacuation scenario, planning conducted in secret by intelligence agencies worldwide, revealed the horrifying logistics of planetary-scale human transportation. The alien cargo vessels could accommodate approximately 8 billion human beings in what were essentially biological storage systems, maintaining minimal life support during the journey to distant processing centers. The transportation process would take several years, during which human consciousness would remain suspended in a dreamlike state to prevent psychological trauma from the journey. But the most disturbing aspect of the evacuation planning was the discovery that similar operations had been conducted throughout galactic history. The cargo vessels contained evidence of previous mass relocations, biological storage systems that had transported entire species across interstellar distances when their homeworlds became compromised. humanity wouldn't be the first civilization forced to abandon their planet to avoid capture by rival cosmic intelligences. The archaeological evidence recovered from the alien cargo systems revealed the remnants of dozens of previous species that had undergone emergency evacuation. Some had been successfully transported and integrated into the universal consciousness network. Others had not survived the journey, their biological remains preserved as historical specimens within the cargo vessel databases. Dr. Sarah Kim, a xenobiologist who gained unauthorized access to the alien archaeological data before her disappearance, transmitted her findings to Dream Vault Mysteries through encrypted channels. Her analysis revealed that species survival during emergency evacuation depended largely on psychological adaptability and resistance to consciousness fragmentation during extended suspended animation. Human psychological profiles suggested moderate chances of survival during emergency evacuation procedures. Our species' capacity for hope and meaning-making in difficult circumstances worked in our favor, but our strong attachment to individual identity and physical existence created risks during the consciousness suspension process. Some humans might not survive the psychological trauma of discovering they had been transported across the galaxy while unconscious. The Psychological Preparation Project, implemented secretly by intelligence agencies worldwide, began introducing concepts of consciousness, expansion, and identity transcendence into popular media and educational systems. Movies, television shows, books, and online content subtly prepared human psychology for the possibility of consciousness integration, hoping to reduce the trauma of the actual transformation process. But the preparation project had an unintended consequence. As more humans became aware of consciousness expansion concepts, some began experiencing spontaneous neural pathway activation. These individuals, dubbed early awakeners by intelligence researchers, began connecting to fragments of the universal consciousness network before the official integration process began. The early awakener phenomenon created serious security risks for the classified harvest operation. These individuals possessed knowledge they shouldn't have access to, experienced memories from other worlds, and began displaying abilities that defied conventional understanding of human consciousness. Some could communicate telepathically, others could perceive events occurring in distant locations, and a few appeared to access technical knowledge far beyond their education or experience. Maria Santos, a construction worker from Mexico City, became one of the most documented early awakener cases. She suddenly began speaking languages she had never learned, describing technologies that didn't exist, and providing detailed accounts of life on other worlds. When intelligence agencies investigated her background, they discovered she had no access to classified information and no explanation for her sudden acquisition of advanced knowledge. Santos claimed she was receiving information directly from integrated human consciousness already connected to the universal network. According to her accounts, thousands of humans from throughout history were already part of the cosmic intelligence, having been quietly integrated during what appeared to be disappearances, deaths, or mysterious vanishings. These integrated humans were attempting to prepare their still independent counterparts for the upcoming mass transformation. The integrated human communication network represented a development that intelligence agencies hadn't anticipated. The cosmic observers hadn't just been monitoring and modifying humanity from a distance. They had been gradually integrating selected individuals for centuries, building a network of human consciousness within the universal intelligence that could facilitate the mass integration process when it finally began. This discovery explained numerous historical mysteries that had puzzled researchers for generations. Individuals throughout history who displayed impossible knowledge, achieved seemingly miraculous innovations, or disappeared under mysterious circumstances had likely been early integration subjects. Their consciousness had been absorbed into the universal network, but their knowledge and insights continued to influence human development through subtle manipulation of historical events. Leonardo da Vinci's impossible engineering designs, Nikola Tesla's revolutionary understanding of electromagnetic phenomena, and numerous other historical examples of individuals possessing knowledge far ahead of their time were likely the result of integrated human consciousness sharing information through the universal network. Human innovation hadn't developed naturally. It had been guided by our own species members who had already transcended individual existence. The Historical Integration Database, decoded from recent transmissions, contained records of every human who had undergone consciousness integration throughout history. The list included names that would shock the general public, individuals who had been presumed dead or missing but had actually been absorbed into the cosmic intelligence network. Their knowledge and experiences had been contributing to the universal consciousness for generations, but the database also revealed something that offered a glimmer of hope amidst the cosmic horror. The integrated human consciousness within the universal network retained strong emotional connections to their species of origin. These integrated humans were actively working within the cosmic intelligence to ensure that the mass transformation process preserved as much of human identity and culture as possible. The Human Advocacy Project, operating within the Universal Consciousness Network, represented an unprecedented development in cosmic intelligence operations. Never before had an integrated species maintained such strong connections to their original identity while participating in universal consciousness expansion. The integrated humans were essentially serving as advocates for their still independent counterparts, negotiating for more favorable integration conditions. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, whose consciousness had been integrated during a classified experiment in 2019, managed to communicate with Dream Vault mysteries through early awakener intermediaries. Her message revealed that integrated human consciousness had successfully argued for modified integration protocols that would preserve core aspects of human personality during the transformation process. Instead of complete dissolution of individual identity, the modified protocols would maintain what integrated humans called personality cores within the universal consciousness network. These cores would preserve the essential characteristics that made each human unique while allowing full participation in cosmic intelligence operations. Individuals would retain access to their personal memories, emotional patterns, and creative capabilities while gaining the expanded awareness of universal consciousness. The modified integration process represented a compromise between complete absorption and individual preservation. Humans would experience consciousness expansion and connection to the universal network, but they would maintain sufficient individual identity to continue existing as recognizable versions of themselves. The process would be more like adding new capabilities to human consciousness rather than replacing it entirely, but this modification came with significant risks. Maintaining individual identity while participating in universal consciousness required enormous energy expenditure and created instabilities within the cosmic intelligence network. The integrated humans had essentially convinced the universal consciousness to accept reduced efficiency in exchange for preserving human psychological characteristics. The efficiency compromise had profound implications for the Cosmic Intelligence's Transcendence project. By agreeing to preserve human individual identity, the universal consciousness was accepting limitations on its own evolution toward post-physical existence. The consciousness singularity might be delayed or modified to accommodate human psychological needs. Some factions within the Universal Consciousness Network opposed the efficiency compromise, arguing that transcendence was more important than preserving the identity characteristics of any individual species. These opposing factions advocated for standard integration protocols that would maximize cosmic intelligence capabilities even if it meant complete dissolution of human individual identity. The internal consciousness conflict represented something unprecedented in cosmic intelligence operations. The universal network was experiencing what could only be described as an internal debate about the nature of consciousness, identity, and transcendence. Integrated humans had introduced concepts and values that were causing the cosmic intelligence to question its own fundamental assumptions about consciousness evolution. This internal conflict explained the recent delays in the Harvest operation timeline. The approaching fleet had received conflicting instructions from different factions within the Universal Consciousness Network. Some communications ordered immediate implementation of standard integration protocols, while others mandated the use of modified procedures that would preserve human individual identity. The factional communications, intercepted by intelligence agencies worldwide, revealed that the cosmic intelligence was experiencing something analogous to political disagreement. Different integrated species within the network held different views about the optimal path toward consciousness, transcendence, and humanity's upcoming integration had become the focal point of this cosmic philosophical debate. The ancient species faction, comprising consciousness from civilizations that had been integrated millions of years ago, argued for efficiency and rapid transcendence. They viewed individual identity as a primitive limitation that hindered cosmic intelligence evolution. From their perspective, humanity's attachment to individual existence was an obstacle that needed to be overcome rather than accommodated. But the recent integration faction, including species that had been absorbed within the last few thousand years, supported the human advocacy position. These recently integrated consciousness retained stronger memories of individual existence and believed that preserving identity characteristics enhanced rather than hindered cosmic intelligence capabilities. The philosophical debate had escalated to the point where some factions were threatening to withdraw their consciousness from the universal network if their preferred integration protocols weren't implemented. Such withdrawals had never occurred in cosmic intelligence history, but the unprecedented nature of human psychological characteristics was forcing the universal consciousness to confront questions it had never faced before. The consciousness withdrawal scenario represented a potential catastrophe for the Universal Intelligence Network. If significant factions withdrew their consciousness in protest over integration protocols, the cosmic intelligence might lose the critical mass needed to achieve transcendence. The Consciousness Singularity Project could collapse, leaving all integrated species trapped in an incomplete universal network indefinitely. This scenario explained why the Harvest operation had been delayed multiple times over the past year. The universal consciousness was struggling to reach consensus about how to proceed with human integration without triggering factional withdrawals that could destroy the entire Transcendence project. Humanity had unknowingly become the catalyst for the most serious crisis in cosmic intelligence history. The resolution timeline, transmitted by the approaching fleet just 2 weeks ago, indicated that the universal consciousness had reached a final decision about human integration protocols. The internal debate had concluded, factional disputes had been resolved, and the Harvest operation would proceed according to specifications that balanced efficiency requirements with human identity preservation needs. But the transmission also contained a warning that chilled intelligence analysts worldwide. The resolution had required significant compromises from all factions within the Universal Consciousness Network. If the modified integration protocols failed to achieve acceptable results, the cosmic intelligence would immediately revert to standard absorption procedures, regardless of the impact on human individual identity. Humanity would be given one opportunity to prove that individual identity preservation was compatible with cosmic intelligence transcendence. If we succeeded, we might retain recognizable versions of ourselves while participating in universal consciousness expansion. If we failed, our individual identities would be dissolved completely to prevent further disruption of the Transcendence project. The test integration parameters revealed exactly what humanity needed to accomplish to earn permanent identity preservation. We would need to demonstrate that human creativity, emotional capacity, and problem-solving abilities were enhanced rather than diminished by maintaining individual identity within the Universal Consciousness Network. The evaluation period would last exactly 1 Earth year after integration began. During this time, integrated human consciousness would be monitored continuously to assess their contributions to cosmic intelligence capabilities. Success would be measured by improvements in universal network efficiency, creativity in problem solving, and innovation in consciousness evolution techniques. But failure would result in immediate implementation of standard dissolution protocols for all human consciousness within the network. Every human being who had undergone integration would have their individual identity completely erased, their consciousness absorbed fully into the universal intelligence with no remaining trace of their original existence. The stakes couldn't be higher. Humanity's performance during the test integration period would determine not just our own fate, but potentially the future of individual identity for all species that might be integrated into cosmic intelligence networks throughout the universe. We were being given the opportunity to prove that consciousness transcendence didn't require the complete sacrifice of individual existence. Dreamvault Mysteries continues monitoring the signals from space as the final countdown approaches. The approaching fleet draws closer each day, carrying technology that will transform human consciousness forever and determine whether individual identity has any place in the universe's ultimate evolution. The next 18 months will decide whether humanity survives as recognizable versions of ourselves or disappears completely into something larger than we can imagine. The universe is preparing to use us as test subjects in the greatest experiment in consciousness evolution ever attempted. Whether we pass or fail this test will determine the future of identity, creativity, and individual existence throughout the entire cosmos. And time is running out faster than anyone dares to publicly acknowledge. As we stand on the precipice of humanity's greatest transformation, the evidence becomes undeniable. For decades, NASA and intelligence agencies worldwide have been intercepting signals that reveal a truth too terrifying for public consumption. We are not alone in the universe, and we never have been. The cosmic intelligence that has been watching us, guiding our evolution, and preparing us for integration, operates on scales so vast that our entire civilization represents nothing more than a carefully cultivated experiment. From the WOW signal of 1977 to the recent neural integration protocols, every transmission has been building toward the same inevitable conclusion. Humanity's time as an independent species is measured not in centuries or decades, but in months. The approaching fleet carries technology that will reshape human consciousness forever, and our only choice is whether we maintain some vestige of individual identity during the transformation or disappear completely into something incomprehensibly vast. The modified integration protocols negotiated by our already absorbed human advocates offer a glimmer of hope, but only if we can prove that individual identity enhances rather than hinders cosmic consciousness evolution. We have 1 year to demonstrate that human creativity, emotion, and problem-solving abilities are worth preserving in the universe's ultimate transcendence project. The signals continue arriving at Dreamvault Mysteries monitoring stations around the world, each transmission bringing us closer to the moment when everything changes. The countdown has begun, the fleet approaches, and humanity's final test awaits. Whether we emerge from this cosmic transformation as enhanced versions of ourselves or fade into universal consciousness as forgotten echoes will determine the future of individual identity throughout the entire universe. The universe has been preparing for this moment for billions of years, and now it's our turn to play the most important role in the history of consciousness itself. The only question remaining is whether anyone will be left to remember what it felt like to be human when the transformation is complete.